Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Another day, another New York Giants episode, my friends. And today we're going to cover some divisional opponents in the NFC East with the Giants and why winning these divisional games is just so extremely important in 2021 because obviously we have an extra game this year. A lot of the Giants' non-divisional games are extremely tough and are going to be problematic for them down the stretch. And I think winning these divisional games gives them the best opportunity at making the postseason. We're going to kind of dive into these NFC East opponents, their weaknesses, their strengths, and what we have to look forward to for the Giants and what they need to do to overcome these teams. Some of them they've obviously had trouble with in the past, including the Eagles and Cowboys. Washington is probably their biggest challenge now, interestingly. We're going to kind of go through these different teams and what the Giants need to do to beat them in 2021 and the importance of beating them. So, Anthony, before we dive into this really interesting segment in the middle of dead season and no man's land of the NFL offseason, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing real good. I do have the Mickey Mouse shirt on again. I saw some YouTube comments last time I wore this t-shirt. It's not Ben McAdoo Mickey Mouse. Someone said something McAdoo Mickey Mouse. It's not that. I'm going to Disney today, so I'm going to have a fun time. But, of course, every year winning the divisional games is of the utmost importance. But this year for the Giants, it's kind of a little bit more important because of the rest of their schedule. The divisional games are, believe it or not, their easiest games this season. We play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We play the Kansas City Chiefs. We play the Miami Dolphins, who I think are going to be a really good playoff team this year. We play the Los Angeles Chargers, who some people think could make it really deep in the playoffs. We're playing the Broncos, who have a really, really good roster. Great defense, great offensive line, great group of playmakers as well. Just no quarterback, but still a good team. And then, of course, the Chicago Bears. At the end of the season, if Justin Fields is in and he's playing well, we already know they have a nasty defense. They made a lot of improvements on their offensive line. Allen Robinson, that's another really good team. Carolina Panthers, if Sam Darnold starts to play well, they got a crazy amount of playmakers. They got a young defense. Los Angeles Rams, that's a team that some people think can make it to the Super Bowl this year. This schedule, outside of the division, is kind of difficult. There's a lot of really challenging teams on there. The two Super Bowl teams from last season being the top challenges. So for the Giants, if they want to make the playoffs this year, if they want to make some noise in the NFC, make it deep in the playoffs, be a really good football team, they're going to have to do some work against these divisional opponents because, believe it or not, the Cowboys, one of their easiest games on the schedule. The Eagles, one of their easier games on the schedule. And even Washington, while they are a really solid team with a really good defense, again, quarterback problems there similar to the Broncos. That's a game that you have to win just because it's one of the easier ones on the schedule. I know that the Giants have the 7th easiest schedule in terms of, win records from last season. Personally, that's somewhat of a fake statistic in my eyes because your win record last season does not correlate to what kind of team you are this season. Sure, sometimes it does, but you look at those teams that had the low win record last year, they've improved a lot. The Chargers have improved a lot, the Bears have improved, the Falcons have even, made some improvements in terms of getting Kyle Pitts on offense. These teams have improved. I don't think this schedule is as easy as it meets the eye, so winning these divisional games this year, super, super important. The Giants really need to win at least six of them, I think.
Yeah, just looking at the schedule right now, it's not easy. Some graphics have us as one of the easiest schedules in the NFL, but that's only because the NFC East was so bad last year, so it makes them look a lot worse than it is. And when you're looking at this, the Falcons, while it might not be great, they still have Matt Ryan. They just drafted Kyle Pitts. Can't overlook them. The Panthers, like Anthony said, if Sam Darnold's playing well, they have a lot of playmakers. They have a good defense. A tough opponent. Raiders, you never really know. They either come out firing or they struggle. It really ends up on Derek Carr. Then the Broncos, they have a quarterback controversy, so who really knows what's going on there? I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, and I would be surprised if he didn't actually play extremely well in 2021. So Stafford, always somebody to keep an eye on. Now that he's not in Detroit anymore, he can actually utilize some of that weaponry to his advantage. Obviously, you have the two Super Bowl teams with the Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are both insanely. If you hear this siren in the back, it's because they're going to pick up Evan Ingram, who just dropped 5 more passes. Unbelievable. It's the only way I can justify these sirens. They're just so loud. It has to be Evan Ingram at it again. But shifting over to, a couple of these away opponents, those are the home ones. The away opponents, of course, you have the Chiefs, just absurdly a great team with Patrick Mahomes, and you can never overlook them. That's a primetime game. Tampa Bay, another primetime game. Chargers, Justin Herbert, another great team. Saints, without Breeze, they're still going to be good, though. Miami's up and coming. Chicago's, we got to win that game. And it's the divisional opponents, like Anthony said. It's the divisional opponents that are going to be the ones that we need to win. And I want to dive into the Dallas Cowboys first and just see like what are their weaknesses, their strengths. How can the Giants overcome this team? Now, Dallas obviously runs through Dak Prescott. When Dak Prescott went down, their team completely fell apart. And they were losing before, even when Dak Prescott was playing. But they have a better chance of winning when he's on the field. The guy can throw the ball. They have Kellen Moore ran offense that is very focused on high percentage throws, even pushing the ball downfield, and getting separation for the receivers. They have talented receivers in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup. They have good tight ends with Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz. And they have Ezekiel Elliott. So, how else can you get around a good offense like that unless you have a great defense, lucky the Giants do? Now, their defense is where their weaknesses lie. Of course, the secondary for them is a huge question mark. They drafted Micah Parsons. Their linebackers with Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch are very good. But the Giants, with Saquon Barkley, he can break a couple tackles and he can go to the house at any moment. It doesn't matter who's playing linebacker. He's done it in the past against some of the better players in the NFL. Now, hopefully he returns 100% healthy, and he can do those type of things against Parsons and Vander Esch. But when you're looking at that Dallas secondary, that's where the Giants are going to have to take advantage of them. They just hired last year, early this offseason, Dan Quinn, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, so he's another ex-head coach, a lot of experience. He's a Super Bowl winning guy. When you have a guy like that, you have to assume it's going to take a step forward. They're going to be a better performing unit in 2021. But I'll tell you what, their secondary does not scare me one bit. At cornerback, they have Anthony Brown, average maybe. Deontay Burton, don't even know who that is. Maurice Kennedy, don't even know who that is. Trevon Diggs, he's young, but he's average right now. We'll see if he takes a step forward. CJ Goodwin, don't even know who that is. Kelvin Joseph, their rookie. He had some problems in college. He's going to need a year to develop. I don't think he's going to come in and solve that CB1 spot right away. They have Jordan Lewis, Israel Mukamu, and they have Reggie Robinson. The reality is this team is full of average cornerbacks. They don't have a number one cornerback. They lost, what's his name? Dude, what was his name? The Giants were looking at him last year. Didn't
come on, Byron Jones. Byron Jones is in Miami now, who we will have to face.
Byron Jones. We will have to face him, but they lost Byron Jones. They lost Cheeto Awuzie. They don't have, they got Keanu Neal, but the reality is their secondary is patchwork right now.
I believe that they signed Neal to play linebacker as well, so I really don't know what difference he makes as a secondary piece.
Exactly. Their safeties include Stephen Parker, DeMonte KZ, that's another guy they got from Atlanta. Dan Quinn's bringing over all his old players. Darian Thompson, Donovan Williams, and a couple of no-names. And the reality is their secondary is average at best. They had one of the worst secondaries in the NFL last year, and they did very little to actually upgrade it, and they lost Cheeto Awuzie to free agency. So when I'm looking at this team, I'm looking at it and saying that if the Giants' passing attack can step up, if they can give Daniel Jones time in the pocket, they can easily overcome Dallas. They're just going to have to stop their offense or at least outscore them, which I think they can do with their new weapons, Anthony. When you're looking at this team, though, are you confident the Giants have the upper hand? A lot of people are saying Dallas is the worst team in the division, maybe the second to worst team behind Philadelphia. What are the weaknesses in your opinion, and what are their strengths?
Weaknesses, the secondary. You laid it out perfectly. You said it's at average at best. It's below average at best. Like, that secondary is rough. It's a bad look. I think that their Alabama cornerback that they have going into his second season, I think he's the only capable player in that secondary, good player. Yeah, Diggs. I think that he's a good player. He's going to have to build and take that step forward. But still, you look around the rest of that secondary, you say, okay, this is pretty rough for them. That's what the Giants need to exploit, because they do have a great linebacker core. They do have Leighton Vander Esch, Micah Parsons, and Jalen Smith. That's a really, really good trio of linebackers right there. It's going to be tough. And they have DeMarcus Lawrence on the defensive line. Their defensive line has been improving steadily year by year, and I think that it's going to be pretty decent this year as well. So the defense, really, you just have to attack that secondary. When the Giants play the Cowboys, that's going to have to be a game where Daniel Jones steps up. He's going to have to come out firing. He's going to have to make the throws. He's going to have to attack downfield. He's going to have Kenny Galladay go off. Kadarius Toney needs to have a big game. That's the game where you just got to throw the ball. Those games against Dallas, in my opinion. When you look at them on the offensive side of the ball, they're kind of stacked, okay? They've got Zeke Elliott. He's been an all-pro in the past. I don't think he's as good as people say he is. I think he's one of the most overrated players in the NFL, but he is a good, capable running back, a very good running back. They've got CeeDee Lamb. They've got Amari Cooper. They've got Blake Jarwin, who's a pretty decent player. Still got Zach Martin on the offensive line. Tyron Smith, he's older now, but he's still good. That's a good offensive line, a great group of playmakers, and Dak Prescott. When Dak Prescott is on the field, that team is a playoff contender, always. I mean, he just always elevates them to another level. I don't know what it is, but when he's in the lineup, everyone just seems to play better. So, offensively, we've got the defense to match up. We've got the defense that stacks up well against them. You know, we can have Adoree Jackson take on CeeDee Lamb while James Bradbury takes on Amari Cooper. We've got Jabril Peppers to take on Blake Jarwin. We've got, capable pass rushers. So, offensively, you got to slow them down. But when we're on offense, we got to attack that secondary. That's the way you win the game against Dallas. This year, both of those games, you got to win through the passing game. And basically, that's how you're going to beat them as well. You're going to slow them down in the passing game. Of course, Zeke Elliott's going to run for, probably 100 yards. He's going to have a good game. But you got to slow down Dak Prescott and make sure that he doesn't will the Cowboys to win. That's basically the game plan there. I think that this is a really good roster that the Cowboys have built, other than that terrible secondary and the holes that they have defensively. But offensively, they've loaded up on playmakers. That pick for CeeDee Lamb last year was the wrong pick in retrospect because it was a luxury pick and they didn't realize how bad their secondary truly was. They probably should have addressed their secondary with that pick, but they have CeeDee Lamb. He's a phenomenal slot receiver, and they have Amari Cooper as well as a phenomenal outside receiver. So they're pretty stacked offensively. Giants defense is pretty stacked as well, so you got to slow them down, but the key to those games, in my opinion, is going to be Daniel Jones throwing the football downfield. Will he be able to do that efficiently? If so, I think the Giants can sweep the Cowboys this year.
I agree. Just hitting on that secondary a little bit more, they drafted 3 corners this year. So they have 3 rookies in the defensive backfield that will probably be getting reps. Israel Makamu. They got Nashton, I think his name, Nashawn Wright, and Kelvin Joseph. I don't anticipate any of those 3 making a significant impact. And their best, and this is a crazy statistic actually, their best cornerback last year was Trevon Diggs. The guy lit up 650 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he was their best cornerback. That should give you a good idea of how poor their secondary was. 650 yards and 6 touchdowns. James Bradbury let up, I think, 3 touchdowns the entire year. 2 of them came in week 1. So he let up 1 touchdown over 15 games after that week 1 performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. What more can you ask? You know what I mean? Like, the Giants have a great secondary compared to Dallas. And if the Giants and Daniel Jones can operate efficiently in the passing game, they can crush Dallas. They can crush them. It's just a matter of giving Daniel Jones time in the pocket, getting the ball to his receivers accurately, and not making mistakes. Don't fumble the football. Protect the football. Live to see another day. You don't have to take try and extend the play to then fumble the football. Throw it away. Take a sack. I don't care. Just be safe with the football. Sacks aren't always the worst thing in the world if you're fumbling at a rate that's unheard of in human mankind. So that's kind of the reality with Daniel Jones is like protect the football, go down by down, attack that secondary, and the offensive line has to play up to potential. And it's not even like Dallas has a crazy pass rush either. I think they lost Aldon Smith. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, and they don't really have like a ton of elite pass rushers. They have Dontarie Poe, but he's getting older now. So it's really DeMarcus Lawrence. If Andrew Thomas can hold him down and they can chip him with Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph, we'll be okay. That offensive line will do okay. I think Randy Gregory they have too. So a lot of older guys. None of them are like insanely productive at this point except for Lawrence. But yeah, so that's kind of what I think about when it comes to Dallas. That's why I think we can overcome Dallas, and why we have the advantage this year simply because their secondary is Swiss cheese. But let's head over to the Philadelphia Eagles and what they kind of represent this season. They also have a very weak secondary. They don't have a ton of guys that can hold it down. They have Avonte Maddox and Darius Slay. Darius Slay by far is their best cornerback. He struggled at times last year. Avonte Maddox is an absolute joke. He's a joke. He sucks. And the Giants can take advantage of that. Neither of those teams have, in my opinion, slot corners who can hold down Shep or Kadarius Toney, especially Dallas. But the Philadelphia Eagles, another one, don't really have that, lockdown slot cornerback. They don't have a lockdown CB2 to pair with Darius Slay, and I still think Kenny Golladay can pick apart Darius Slay. He's got the size, he's got the wingspan, and he's got the physicality to overcome Darius Slay, in my opinion. They have a good run defense, and they still have Brandon Graham, a couple of really good defensive linemen up front. So they'll probably another game that'll be more passing oriented. And their offense is still a huge question mark. Jalen Hurts is a massive question mark. He did not throw the ball very well last year. I think he fumbled the ball like 9 times in 4 starts in 2020, his rookie season. So the guy also has a fumbling issue. Nobody knows what's going on over there. They don't have anybody else competing with him right now. So they're taking a huge risk. They're known for destroying receivers. Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith already doesn't look like he wants to be there. So who knows what Jalen Reagor's doing? And I think that the Giants have their number this year. I think that they have the opportunity to pick apart this Philadelphia Eagles team that doesn't have a quarterback. I was way more afraid of Carson Wentz than Jalen Hurts. I'll tell you that right now. They just completely ruined Carson Wentz. They gave him no time in the pocket. They completely destroyed his habits. Now he's with the Colts, and he looks like he's having a great time again. And he looks like he's ready to ball out. So we'll see if it was Carson Wentz or if it was the Philadelphia Eagles that ruined Carson Wentz. We're going to find that out very, very quickly. And I think we're going to see that Carson Wentz is actually a good quarterback, and the Eagles just completely ruined him with just poor. Their offensive line is also either really old. Lane Johnson is old and has a ton of injuries he's been dealing with. And they didn't really do much. Travis Kelce also dealing with a lot of injuries. Did he retire? Am I crazy? I don't think he retired.
I think you mean Jason Kelce.
Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce. Sorry, Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce is still with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he was injured last season, but he's still with them.
Yeah, and Lane Johnson, too. Another guy who's there, but he also has a ton of injuries he's been dealing with. So it's just a matter of time until they lose somebody in that category due to injury. But I think that for the most part, the Giants have an upgraded pass rush. Their secondary is phenomenal. They're gonna have Jalen Hurts seeing stars by the halfway point. He's just gonna be like, I can't figure out this disguise 3-4 coverage. Their safeties are moving constantly. Their cornerbacks are locking my guys down in man coverage. They're blitzing guys off the edge, extra guys, linebackers, and safeties. He's gonna be like, bro, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I've never seen a team with this many weapons on defense. As long as the Giants remain healthy, he's going to be sitting there like, this isn't Alabama anymore where I have 20 seconds in the pocket to sling the ball downfield and the best receivers in the game. This is going to be like, this is one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're disguising coverages. They're sending extra blitzers. They're spying on him because he can run the football. It's going to be insane. Like the Giants defense, I have such high expectations for them as long as they stay healthy. Jalen Hurts is going to be going through the wash bin over and over again against this Giants team, Anthony. When you're looking at this Eagles squad, are there any parts of it that scare you that there's like, okay, we have to worry about them or worry about this person or that unit? What are you thinking?
Okay, so I'm going to start off and say that the Eagles are bad, okay? I hate the Eagles, and they're very bad, but they do have a good defensive line. And correction on Jason Kelce, he actually did play in all 16 games last season. It was Brandon Brooks, their all-pro right guard. That's what I was thinking of. He missed the full season. Lane Johnson only played in 7 games. And let me take another look here. They have a huge hole at left guard. Their left guard is trash. And then left tackle, I think Jason Peters was playing there. No, he moved inside. They had so many injuries on the offensive line last year. It was crazy. So Peters moved inside. Andre Dillard was the guy that they drafted back in 2019, I want to say, who people thought could be a pretty quality starting offensive tackle. I don't think he played a snap last year. I don't remember if he was injured or whatever, but he didn't play a snap last year. And now he's supposed to be their starting left tackle. So in terms of not having continuity on an offensive line, we talk about that with the Giants all the time. Eagles are going through the same thing. They still have Lane Johnson coming back. He is a former All-Pro. Jason Kelce coming back, a former All-Pro. So those guys should hold it down. Brandon Brooks is still coming back, former All-Pro. But we'll see how they play coming off of all of these injuries and all of this disconnect after last season where things were just a mess for them. Now, when you look to the defensive side of the ball for Philadelphia, they have Fletcher Cox still, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. They have Brandon Graham, one of the better edge rushers in the NFL out of a 4-3 defense. So you look at that and you say, okay, they still have a good defensive line. They still have Barnett as well, Derek Barnett. So they've got capable defensive linemen, but really that's the crux of their defense. You could say Darius Slay is a good corner, but I think he's well past his prime. I'll say the number one most underrated player on this defense for Philadelphia is Anthony Harris. That was a signing that really went under the radar. Anthony Harris in 2018 and 2019 was one of the best safeties in the NFL. He was elite those years. He kind of took a step back in 2020 that led to him leaving Minnesota, but now he's with Philadelphia in 2021. We'll see if he bounces back. That's a player that you really need to keep an eye on. Rodney McLeod as well is not a terrible player. He's been pretty consistently above average throughout his entire career. So they've got some good safeties. They've got a really good defensive line. I think they have huge holes in inside linebacker, and I think that their their cornerbacks are pretty bad as well. Maddox was the worst graded cornerback by PFF in 2020. He ranked 121st out of 121 cornerbacks with a 37.8 overall PFF grade. So take from that what you will. Avonte Maddox, Swiss cheese, he's terrible. And Darius Slay is really their only capable cornerback as well. Slot cornerback, they're going to have somebody new step up. Who knows who? But doubt he's going to be any good.
Tony Ankles.
Linebackers not that good either. And safety is really the only place where it's good. You can look at their wide receiving core. I don't think Travis Fulgham is that good. I think he's super overrated. I do think Jalen Reagor is a good player. I think he's going to be an excellent deep threat. I just think he needs time to develop. And Devontae Smith, we'll see, because I think he struggles year one, but who knows? Maybe he ends up being really good. Tight end, they've got a little bit of a problem with Zach Ertz. They didn't trade him. They wanted to, but they still got Dallas Goedert. So strengths of this team. The playmaking core. I do think they've got capable receivers, a capable tight end. I think they got good players there. Strength or weakness, I don't know yet. Offensive line. It's going to be really, really tough to see who stays healthy, who plays all 16 games. I don't know. The offensive line for them is a wild card. One of the biggest weaknesses, Jalen Hurts. I think he's horrible. I don't think he's going to be a capable quarterback in the NFL. I see a lot of problems in his game, and I don't see them getting fixed anytime soon. Another strength, the defensive line. Okay, that's one of their top strengths. Their defensive line is very, very good unit. Their safeties as well. But for the most part, their secondary is not very good because their cornerbacks are very, very bad. So top strengths, defensive line, playmakers, and probably offensive line. Top weaknesses, their cornerbacks, and their quarterback. And that's always the biggest one. Unless Jalen Hurts takes a huge jump this year, this team is not going to be good.
Yeah, and I see the Giants in this game, or both games really, attacking the middle of the field. They have poor linebackers, poor corners. Kadarius Toney being a big factor in the. Honestly, I think Toney might be the biggest factor against these divisional opponents because most of them don't have good slot corners. So Shep and Toney, I think are going to have big games in both against Dallas and the Eagles. But we did miss one big draft pick for the Eagles. They drafted Landon Dickerson out of Alabama at center. So that's another player. If they wanted to continue adding injured linemen to their crop, they did just that. I
think that he might start at left guard though, because they do have that hole there. He might start there.
It makes sense, and I'll tell you what, Landon Dickerson is literally an injury waiting to happen. The guy goes down every single year for one reason or another. It's just a matter of time until it happens at the NFL level. His ankle gets rolled up on. He does something strange. I don't know. It could be anything, but the guy is a walking injury. I wanted to stay away from him personally because of that, and the Giants, I think, were targeting him potentially because he is an Alabama product, and they do love Alabama players. But at the end of the day, they ended up with Azeez Ojulari, another SEC pass rusher, so I was totally 100% fine with that. I think I actually prefer that far more than drafting Landon Dickerson because I just don't trust him at all for the injury reasons. And look, if he gets injured significantly, like in his first or second year, the Eagles are going to be sitting there like crap. Like he's a perennially injured player now. Like he already is now. It's just waiting for it to happen again. So I don't really think that's going to be a big influential factor in Landon Dickerson, especially since he played center for a majority of his snaps at Alabama, and now transitioning to guard, he's going to have troubles. He's going to have issues with his game. It's undeniable. Every player does, especially a rookie making a transition to another position. So I think the Giants are going to be able to overwhelm that left guard spot. I know Lane Johnson's getting significantly older. The guy was like 35 now. He must be super old or something crazy like that. So he's going to start hitting a shelf where he's just getting bad due to father time. And I'll tell you what, I think this Giants team has the advantage this year. I think they have the talent, they have the offensive weapons to overcome Philadelphia. They have very, very weak corners, aside from Darius Slay. Their linebackers are pretty weak as well. The receivers are vastly underdeveloped, in my opinion. Even with Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor, we have far experienced cornerbacks compared to the receivers, so I think we're going to do well against them. And our defense just rallies to the football. They're all very aggressive, very disciplined because of Joe Judge and that coaching staff. And I think that this defense is going to make Jalen Hurts wish he never stepped on a football field ever again, which is exactly what I would like. I hope they crush his confidence to a level where they have to draft a quarterback next year. That's how bad they want the Giants to crush Jalen Hurts' confidence. So hopefully they can manage to pull that off. I'm excited to see how that goes for the Giants, but these two divisional opponents are probably the weakest of the bunch, and then the hardest one is obviously going to be Washington. Washington is not a bad team whatsoever. They are a quality team. They have a great defense, a very good defensive line, a solid secondary. They allowed I think the second fewest yards per game through the air last year. A lot thanks because of their defensive line, the pressure they created, their offense. For whatever reason, Ron Rivera thought it was important to say that they're trying to take less pressure off the quarterback and they don't need a good quarterback to be good on offense. It's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. But they think Ryan Fitzpatrick can get it done. They think they have enough weapons in Curtis Samuel. They have, what's his name? Antonio Gibson. They have a couple of solid players, a couple of solid receivers there. And I think for the most part, they probably could have a decent offense, but that quarterback position is going to come back to haunt them. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets benched for every year for one reason or another. Inadequacies, the guy dives headfirst into like Terrell Suggs, back in the day. Like the guy just is looking to get injured. He takes big hits. He tries to give out big hits. He's not a big guy. He's the toughest man you'll ever see at quarterback. And I actually really like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Personally, I love him because of how tough he is and how just like he goes balls to the wall every single play. But the guy always has inconsistencies because of that. He always, kind of runs himself into the ground with the fatigue and whatnot. So the Washington no-name football team is going to have struggles at quarterback one way or another at some point in the season. So that's kind of my perspective on that. Their defense is phenomenal. We have the offense to match it now, in my opinion. But our defense is going to make their offense look like a bunch of toddlers. That's how I feel.
A bunch of toddlers. This is the team to beat in the NFC East for sure. My opinion on Ryan Fitzpatrick is a little bit different from Alex's. I think he provides Washington with at least average quarterback play consistently throughout the season. I think that he will be another slightly above average quarterback because that's kind of what he is every year. Like, he does have those games where he goes wild and he's super inconsistent because of that and he just doesn't have a good game. But that's going to be tough for him to have those really bad games this year because Washington has given him a plethora of playmakers, okay? You got Terry McLaurin, who's slowly becoming one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. They drafted Diami Brown. Now, a lot of you guys who were following us pre-draft know I was really high on Diami Brown pre-draft. I think that he's a really, really solid wide receiver. And they have Curtis Samuel, who we all know is a really, really good receiver. And then, of course, Logan Thomas, a nice up-and-comer at tight end. He's been pretty good. And Antonio Gibson, an up-and-comer at running back. They've got a good group of playmakers that'll help Ryan Fitzpatrick out. All he needs to be is about average. That quote from Ron Rivera was a little confusing because you're settling for average at quarterback. But that's really all they need from him to make the playoffs. Just be average, and these playmakers and this defense will get it done because this defensive line, oh my goodness, this is, arguably one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL. You've got Chase Young, Montez Sweat. There's not many edge rush duos that are better than that. Darren Payne, who's a really, really good interior defensive lineman. Jonathan Allen, a really, really good interior defensive lineman. Not many interior defensive line duos better than that, other than, maybe Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, but that's a really good duo right there for Washington. And then, of course, they got Landon Collins. He tore his Achilles. He's coming back. We'll see how he does. But really, Kendall Fuller is also a good wide receiver. They signed William Jackson, a pretty good, not receiver, cornerback. They got William Jackson, who's a pretty good cornerback as well. They did draft Jamin Davis this year, who's a pretty good inside linebacker. We'll see how he does in his rookie season. I'd say and they got Bobby McCain, who was a captain for the Miami Dolphins last year. He's a pretty solid player as well. So they really upgraded in a lot of places defensively, and they already had a really good defense. They upgraded a few times on the wide receiver duo, that core right there. Really, their biggest weakness, I guess, is probably their offensive line. I'm not very high on Charles Leno Jr. I think Eric Flowers is still horrible. They did draft Cosme, who's a good player, and they're going to put him next to Brandon Scherf, who's a really, really good player. But the left side of their line, I think, is going to spell some trouble for them. I think that's going to be where the issues lie. I guess mainly you're going to hope that Landon Collins never returns to form. He continues to be a below-average safety. And you're going to hope that Bobby McCain doesn't, return to form and become an above-average safety again either. That's really, I guess, where you're going to attack this team. the deep secondary, the safeties, and maybe the inside linebackers. You're going to hope Jamin Davis doesn't have a great rookie season, but that defensive line, those outside cornerbacks, they're good. I know the Giants beat Washington twice last year. I hope they do that again, but this is a really good defense. This is a great group of playmakers and a pretty average quarterback, so this is the team to beat. If the Giants are going to sweep the division, I think their most challenging opponent is going to be Washington, and they're going to... I know we've got a good track record against Washington these past couple of years. Daniel Jones has really had their number, but they've always had like some major injury going into those games, something going wrong, but I don't know, man. Daniel Jones is going to have to step up in this one because this is a really good defensive line. Our offensive line is going to have to really step up against Washington twice a year. That's going to be a real challenge for them, so Washington's a team to beat, man. I think we can do it. I think we can get it done, but it's not going to be easy.
Not at all. And, to wrap up this episode, I'll say this. Their cornerbacks, Kendall Fuller and William Jackson, both solid players. And I think this is a game where Kenny Golladay is going to have to show out against William Jackson. I think Jackson is a beatable cornerback. I think he's probably fringe CB1. And I think Kenny Golladay has the size and physicality to overcome William Jackson. This is where he has to make his money. This is where he makes that $72 million 4-year contract that the Giants just handed out to him. So we're going to be depending on that. Another team that doesn't have maybe a elite slot corner, so Kadarius Toney, another player, Sterling Shepard in the slot that I'm going to be anticipating will be getting a lot of action. Jamin Davis, a very raw linebacker. I would be asking Evan Ingram to attack him in coverage, work those seams, and that's kind of how I see this team going. It's going to be really tough to run on this Washington football team, so you're going to have to attack them through the air, and I think that's kind of the priority for the Giants, guys. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, my friends, just going through the NFC East and this divisional opponents. These are very important games for us. We can sweep the Eagles and Dallas. Washington's going to be pretty tough to do, but I think we can beat them. We've proven it in the past, and I think that, it's going to be tough games, but they're winnable games. They're not. We have a good team. We upgraded our team just as much as them, if not more. So I'm excited about this upcoming season, my friends. And make sure to leave a voicemail. I got my Fireside Giants community fam. We've gotten a couple really good voicemails yesterday and continue to show love on that end. We'll be doing that every Monday or Tuesday, depending on the schedule. I'm really excited about that and to answer your questions and get your opinions and whatnot. So we really appreciate all the feedback you've offered on that end, as always. And make sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Notifications on Spotify, iTunes, ring the little bell on YouTube too. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. Much love and have a fantastic rest of your day.